Today we are going to talk about the Terminator Datacard. We are also going to talk about a lot of different special rules, especially for weapons, and we are going to analyze all of that step by step. If you enjoy the content, consider leaving a thumbs up and subscribing, as well as checking the links down in the description below if you want to support what I do. My name is Flash, and this is Senpai of Wargames. As you may have noticed, Warhammer community has released an article showcasing the Terminator Squad Datacard. They've also shown off a couple of special rules, characteristics, and so on, and we are going to go over that step by step and discuss everything. If you want to check out the Warhammer community article yourself, it is going to be linked down in the pinned comment. So if you look at the Terminator Datacard, it is more or less what we expected, but some things are dialed up even further. So if you check out the basic stats, the movement value is 5, toughness is 5, which is new, a save characteristic of 2+, 3 wounds, leadership of 6, and OC of 1. Let's stay there for a second. So the movement of 5 is okay. Toughness 5, on the other hand, is really reminiscent of Gravis units, and I'm fairly certain that they are going to change Gravis units in some form or fashion. Either they are going to make them more similar to Terminator units, or they are going to give them something else. Because if Gravis are going to stay the way they are, which is basically toughness 5 and no invulnerable save, I think that would suck. But that also depends on the points value and so on. So that is something that we should definitely keep an eye on. How are they going to differentiate Terminator units and Gravis units, if at all? And are they going to give Gravis units some kind of differentiating factor to make them worthwhile? Because even if they give them some kind of invulnerable save, or maybe even toughness 6, who knows, that would be a step in the right direction, at least in my opinion. Now the save of 2+ was retained, that makes sense. Terminators are Terminators, 3 wounds are still there. Leadership of 6 is something that we covered in the previous video. It's basically the same thing most Space Marine units are going to have, including intercessors. And the OC of 1 is basically also what we discussed in the last video, and is exactly what we expected. It is not a battle line unit, and thus it only has an OC of 1. And yeah, it basically doesn't have objective secured. That is basically what this means. When we look at the weapons, super easy to understand. I went over data cards quite a bit, so I'm going to keep this one short. We have a lot of weapons with special rules that we don't know yet. The assault cannon has devastating wounds. The Cyclone missile launcher is back with a shorter range, but more interesting weapon profiles, and it still retains the blast rule, which seems to return. The heavy flamer ignores cover and has the torrent special rule, and storm bolters are rapid fire too, but rapid fire changed its wording and it works slightly differently, although for the number of attacks in this case it doesn't change anything. Melee weapons are as we expected, and they make use of the kind of special rows that you have for all the different weapons you have displayed. For example, the Chain Fist has a weapon skill of 4+. You don't need to check on your weapon whether it's going to be harder to hit or something. You just have it shown on your data card directly, and that makes it easy to just take a look at a quick glance and roll your dice. Easy enough. And the Chain Fist obviously also has a special rule called Anti-Vehicle 3+. We are going to cover all of them in a second via the Warhammer community article. Next, there is the Abilities tab, which says Core, Deep Strike. Deep Strike is basically exactly what you expect it to be. Faction Oath of Moment seems to be a sub-faction kind of rule, or something special for Terminators, which allows you to enable special things for your Terminators and target specific units that you're going to get bonuses against. Then you have the Teleport Homer, which is basically just a small model that you've seen together with the reveal of the Terminator squad, and you can just place it anywhere that is not in your opponent's deployment zone, and you can then pay a stratagem that costs 0 CP, and you can deep strike exactly there if you are within 3 horizontally of that token and 9 away from the opponent. So you are not going to get any closer to your opponent than you would previously, but it enables you to just basically deep strike wherever you want, as long as those conditions are met. Easy enough, but also not that great. I would have thought that the Teleport Homer would enable you to have some kind of shenanigans because your opponent does have counterplay. They can just position a lot of units on the teleport beacon or Homer, and you wouldn't be able to do anything with it. So I was hoping that it would allow you to just also move closer than 9 inches to an opponent. That doesn't seem to be the case. And last but not least, there's the rule Fury of the First. This one basically enables your Terminators to be immune to any changes to ballistic or weapon skill and to hit rolls, as well as getting an additional +1 to hit if you target a enemy unit with the Oath of Moment ability and then attack it. That's basically all you need to know. And yeah, easy as basically everything as we expected it to be. Terminators having toughness 5 is the only thing that I really didn't expect. Seeing Cyclone missile launchers return is really, really cool. And also because a lot of people mention it on Reddit and so on, Assault Terminators are going to get their own data card. That is basically what is going to happen. Are they going to release anytime soon? Who knows? But I'm 99.9% certain that they are going to get their own data card with their own weapons and their own kit. That is basically all I'm going to say. Oh, and there's obviously the invulnerable save displayed at the very bottom in the abilities tab. But yeah, it's just kind of displayed in a prominent fashion. I would have personally preferred it to see it next to the OC value, just because I would in that case have everything on the top and not need to look at the bottom right, but that's kind of a luxury issue here. Next up are the characteristics. One of the core design goals of the new edition of Warhammer 40,000 is to make notably tough units even tougher and allow them to withstand punishment befitting their reputations. Terminators, for instance, retain their iconic 2+ save but get an increased toughness of 5 and a 4+ invulnerable save right out of the gate, boosting their resistance to mass low strength weapons and armor piercing cannons alike. Their leadership score of 6+ is also excellent in the new edition, on par with most characters, though with an objective control score of just 1, they'll need some help from intercessors to hold down the fort. That is not going to work, especially against kind of swarmy armies, as we've discussed in the last video. Then there are weapons. Stormbolters and Power Fists go together like cheese and wine. The former has a new look. Rapid fire abilities that give extra shots within half range. So with Rapid Fire 2, on top of weapons base attacks value of 2, they can still fire 4 times within 12 inches. This is basically very reminiscent of the Orc special rule. It basically says it Rapid Fire X, and if you're within half range of your weapon, you add whatever Rapid Fire X says on top of your basic attack. So if it says Rapid Fire 10 and your basic weapon has 2 attacks, you then at half range shoot 12 attacks or shoot 12 times. That is basically it. Super easy to understand and yeah, easy to kind of balance for GW instead of always just saying it doubles the number of attacks. That is way more difficult to balance. This rule makes it way easier. Power Fists are a little more spicy. They are less unwieldy now, hitting on 3+, while Chain Fist shred armor with the new Anti-Vehicle 3+ ability. Anti-abilities cover many different keywords like infantry, monster, and vehicle. Produce a critical wound on any wound roll that matches or beats the specified score, regardless of the target's toughness. This makes for a specialized weapon that excel in their field, but don't stay equally deadly against other target types. I hope this is something that Necrons are going to make a lot of use of, especially Necron warriors, which always had that iconic rend ability back in 3rd, 4th, 5th edition, where even the weakest Necron warrior could rend and kind of damage any kind of vehicle, no matter how tough it was. And I hope they are going to make kind of use of that with Necrons in mind, because it just fits that army very, very well. Then you can see the weapon ability anti, and then it explains it again with critical wounds and so on. Several other Terminator weapons have their own abilities like devastating wounds on the assault cannon, and they'll be covering those later. So we, as always, we are not getting all the information here. Then there are further abilities. Almost every datasheet in the game now has its own special ability, which makes use of stratagems. Teleport Homer makes use of the new Rapid Ingress core stratagem to deep strike in your opponent's turn. And here you can see basically what it means. For 1 CP you can activate it, and it is very easy to understand. They put in a little bit of flavor text which I always appreciate, even though it makes the card look a little bit more bloated. I think flavor text and a little bit of lore and all those kind of bits are just part of the hobby and part of what we do and what we play. And yeah, I think it's not that bad. And then when you look at how these stratagems are executed or special abilities, it is as easy as they could have made it. When at the end of your opponent's movement phase, target one unit from your army that is in reserves effect, your unit can arrive on the battlefield as if it were the reinforcement step of your movement phase. Restrictions: you cannot use the stratagem to enable a unit to arrive on the battlefield during a battle round it would not normally be able to do so in. Super easy to understand, super easy to kind of go through and just execute the stratagem one by one. And yeah, just a great way to kind of present stratagems and how they are executed. And lastly, Fury of the First, meanwhile, makes Terminators especially effective at destroying the target of Oath of Moment, the Space Marine faction ability. As always, they are teasing this one for tomorrow, so there's going to be more and more and more content coming out. So I'm going to cover all of that. Expect more videos than usual because I really enjoy covering 10th edition because it looks very exciting. As you may have noticed, we didn't go over a lot of special rules that were displayed on the Terminator Squad data card, like for example, ignores cover, what exactly does that do, torrent, and so on. And we also don't quite know what criticals are and so on. So there's still a lot to cover and a lot to talk about. But if you have any opinions on the Terminator data card and on the special rules we've talked about, drop them all in the comments down below, and I'll see you tomorrow for more Warhammer 40,000 10th edition. Take care.